more fun stuff now.
Yes, the gamer and the artist in me is in love right now.
This is something we didn't even know existed until what, summer?
Yeah, it
July
was the summer.
time?
It was the
Summer Game
Summer
Fest,
Game
yeah.
Fest was when it got announced.
And it instantly jumped to like the top of our hype level
Oh,
because from the creators of Love, Death and Robots, which is one of the greatest anthology series
yeah,
made in the
one of
last
the
like 30 years.
best animation series in a
Exactly.
while.
Um, so the people who worked on Love, Death and Robots have worked with a bunch of game studios to create. What was it? Is it 10? No, it's 18 of them.
Uh,
Two lots of 8,
15. No, I think it's
15.
15.
Um, short
Yeah,
anthology
15.
episodes based on different gaming IPs.
Yep.
We have watched the first 3 episodes. It only came out today. And I have a full-time job, and trying to find time to watch a bunch of stuff is always easy. We watched the first 3 episodes, which was Dungeons and Dragons,
Yep.
SIFU,
Yep.
and New World.
Yep.
Wow, wow, wow. They were so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, Love, Death and Robots, like I know from like I love that series from an artist point of view. Like
Yeah.
the 3D animation, all those studios did amazing. Like it's such a creative person's like love watching that show because you just kind of we look at it from that perspective. So knowing the same people behind that were now on this, and it was video games, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be like all my favorite cutscenes ever. And the fact that like we've just had Arcane, which is an incredible video game based story and animation. The artist and gamer in me has loved that, and now I'm getting this. I'm just like overwhelmed with just creative edit from this. But yeah, the first 3 episodes. From the first episode, I messaged late last night when I was watching. I was like, "Holy shit, this is so fucking good!" And like, yeah, wow, wow, wow. I mean, I have my rankings from just these 3 episodes, and we'll see if yours. I have a feeling yours are going to be different. But I have D&D as number 1. Then I have SIFU. Then I have New World.
So I have SIFU, followed by New World, followed by D&D.
Oh, so it's interesting because I've seen obviously people's some rankings to the whole thing, and obviously they vary. And it obviously a lot of it seems to come down to what is your like game you resonate more with. Obviously, it's no secret on here that I'm play D&D. I love D&D. Obviously, you enjoy it, but like I've played D&D for many years now.
Yeah.
All through that episode, I was like, straight away, I'm like, okay, that's a paladin, that's a wizard, that's a monk.
It was really cool. Don't get me wrong, none of them were bad.
No, yeah.
It was just the story, and don't get me wrong, it's very short, but the story of that wasn't as compelling to me.
I can understand. I think the reason I enjoyed that story so much is because in my head, I looked at it as a D&D campaign, and I'm like, oh shit, that is a campaign that would have me hooked if that's how this started. Like, or that was happening in my campaign, I'd be like, holy shit, this, what the fuck? The dragons just got corrupted and turned into Tiamat.
You've played 12 sessions where you've gone to save this person, taken back to your dragon who's like sponsoring you to do good things, and now your big friendly dragon is the big boss. Brilliant.
Like, it was
like that's a brilliant thing, but I didn't get to watch them fight the dragon.
Well, yeah, but like the kind of build up to that, like from a D&D player's point of view, where's the D&D film? We wanted some fan service, but we wanted it to still like just have the vibe and have a fun story. I'm glad that for this, they were like, we are going to go full fucking fan service, essentially, to the D&D player, because it was like all the spells, like when they save the kid and they're in that dome, straight away I'm like, that's Lumen's tiny hut, because I use that spell all the time with one of my characters.
And like healing touch when she got stabbed.
Healing touch. You had the wizard did cone of fire on the really cool sword bridge. Such a cool environment design.
The sword bridge was fucking awesome. The animation was stunning.
The druid doing beast shape into a warthog or boar is very cool.
I've got to be honest, I loved the monk just punching the shit out of
like the
stuff.
flurry of blows and the dash, doing the blip forward when he punched to show like the dash mechanic and stuff was very cool, with the monk doing his moves. The catching
That
an
man was
arrow
putting damage out.
is a thing that monks can do, which is return projectile, and they can like roll and catch it. So when he caught the arrow and threw it back, I was like, that's so cool. The weird like lich guy on the bat doing counterspell every time she was trying to I was like, counterspell again. It was just the D&D nerd in me is like, oh my god, there's so many things that they're doing right.
I kind of like the running joke of her like wanting to do like fireball and her teammates being like no, because obviously that's famous meme, isn't it? I was like, I didn't ask how big the room was, I said cast fireball.
That's something I'm kind of glad they didn't end up like, even when they said go and I was like, oh, she's gonna do fireball on the bridge, and then she did cone of fire instead, which obviously makes sense. I was like, I'm actually kind of glad they didn't go so like typical with giving us fireball. But yeah,
the animation was gorgeous. Yeah. It was a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. And when I say that's the bottom out of the 3 for me, it does not mean bad.
No. Oh, no.
They were all brilliant. It's just the story itself.
It's what captures you.
Separate. Like, that felt like a D&D story that didn't have a lot else going on. Whereas SIFU and New World, to me, they were clearly based in them games, but there was kind of a story and a idea that transcended the game a little bit more, which I really enjoyed. It was like using a game to teach a life lesson a little bit. And don't get me wrong, the SIFU life lesson is present in the game SIFU.
Yeah. I think, don't get me wrong, like, they're all great. I think the D&D one, being the player, it's like, we get those things, and like, seeing Tiamat and the different things, it's like, I can then understand the world they're in bigger, so I can see, oh, this is probably like how the story would, like, I can see how this would be a campaign, which obviously for you, where you don't have as much knowledge there, it's not gonna, like, but that comes down to what is your preference in game and stuff. But the SIFU one, I love how they essentially showed what happens in the game, and what you essentially go through in the game.
I love the full circleness of, she spent 60 years of her life perfecting dumplings. He spent 60 years of his life to get revenge.
I like, because I haven't played SIFU, but I know of it. Like, I know the rough concept. But yeah, the SIFU one was, I mean, the fight scenes was sick. The whole like the way they were telling and visually showing like the animation style for that episode was really nice, and then the showing his aging.
SIFU's a really interesting game to me, and I've not got around to play it. It's been on my backlist for ages, but it is one of the most true art games that's been incredibly popular over the last few years. Because it's a fighting game that's quite difficult, but there's multiple endings based on what you do in the game, and the entire game's premise is revenge isn't the answer, and you should forgive and learn and move on. So, to distill that into like a 12-minute episode, whatever it was so beautifully impressive. The use of him being the young version sat there, and then when you die in the game, you get older. And you get your damage goes up, and you lose HP.
Yeah, you become a glass cannon the more times you die.
Was very well distilled. It also gave the idea that it's not you spent years trying to get revenge. It's you're literally giving up some of your life to become more powerful. And then, like I said, at the end, when you get that full circle moment of him going back and going, was it worth it? And she goes, you tell me. Was a case of,
realizes,
was it worth giving up all of that life for revenge? I think that's a beautiful message that was distilled in such a gorgeous way.
They nailed showing the mechanics of the game for the people that have played it and be like, oh, this feels like SIFU. They nailed essentially the message of the game, and they got to tell that in a new format without it felt like something new, but it was just, we were just watching the game, but we got to see it in a new creative way, which I think is exactly what these episodes need to be. But
Exactly. It was really, really fun. I enjoyed it. The animation style's gorgeous.
Hmm.
Mimics the game very closely, but obviously that extra polish of
Oh
treating it as an
yeah.
animated project, really, really fun. While the
New-
first two are gorgeous
mm.
and very, very nice, obviously I've not played New World, but I did love the New World episode.
So I have played a lot of New World, as you
Yes, you
know.
have, Mr. Tree
Um,
Chopper.
yeah, I don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. It just out of those three was not my favorite.
Get
Um,
that?
Purely because, and I said it in a message to you, I think the story just didn't hit with me because I've spent so much time playing New World. In my brain, I was like, I get this, I get what they're showing of New World, but I kind of felt like there's some cooler stuff they could have maybe gone with, like, or like lent into. Um, but I get what they were
My
going for. It just wasn't for me.
I think my opinion on it was, although it was the New World episode, it was more of a MMORPG episode. A
Yeah.
world in which you can't die, you're going to keep respawning, and you've got to choose what to do. The thing that I really loved was the message of the episode. You've got this guy who turns up and thinks he's hot shit, and just
Mm.
gets destroyed. I love that they cast Arnold Schwarzenegger to voice him as
Yeah.
well. I thought that was a
That
really good
that
decision.
was great.
And he just fails and fails and fails, and you think it's going to be like a story of perseverance, but instead it's okay. Why don't you learn from this and actually become a better person?
Mm.
He gets worse because he's learning the wrong message, and it's
Hmm.
still not enough. And he then steals the crown, and he thinks he's got what he wants, and he realizes he's lost everything because he's gonna live forever, but now he's lost his only friend.
Yep.
And then he decides to kind of do the right thing. It's not all about fighting and trying to be the best. It's about learning a skill and doing good with it. He goes to someone, he goes, "Can you teach me to forge?" Which I assume is a skill in the game or whatever.
Well, yeah.
And he
There's
makes something for his friend. And it's like that idea of like, yeah, you can just go and fight and fight and fight, but what's it worth? You can do something nice for someone else with your time instead. And I just thought that was a really nice message while also keeping
yeah.
it quite light-hearted.
Yeah.
Because it was funny watching him just get his ass kicked again and again and again.
It was. They did it as like a Groundhog Day style
Yes.
humor, and yeah, like I get the message. I think from my like for me, it was just I know New World so well. I'm like, there's fun stuff you can do for like an RPG game to kind of like keep that fun sort of jokey thing of they could have lent into like the crafting thing of like, oh, you've got a backpack, just this. Imagine it's just the same character, but he's got like a backpack on leaning forward, and it's literally just fucking stacked high with logs. And it's this
You
idea.
wanted a 20-minute episode
No,
of someone cutting trees.
but not necessarily logs, but like then he goes and does it with my like just that idea that the funny thing with MMOs is always like you have these inventories full of stuff, and it's like no one would actually be able to carry all this stuff. Or like the idea is that like in New World, you can use whatever weapon you get abilities with. Like I would have liked to see closer to like the weapon choices. Like the sword is a sword and shield in the game, or the like there was the rapier which the king was using, and he gets an axe. Is like that corrupted axe. That's the closest to what I felt. I was like, oh, he got a new world weapon. I just would have liked to see some of that. Of maybe it started with him picking a weapon on the beach, and then we see him using that, and then he starts to get the abilities that in the game, and we get to see a bit more of that like VFX ability esque with the
Yeah.
weapons. Show that stuff, then it's just it feels like it only like slightly touched into the new world aspects, but it was
I get that.
great. But it was just compared to the other stuff, but like the D&D stuff, I was like, oh my god, I'm getting all the spells and all the different stuff. I was just like,
I get that.
I will
I
say the
Go
remaining episodes, from what I'm seeing, and I've said this to you already, everyone's rankings has the next 5 episodes above these 3,
hmm
with the top 3 being very similar, but like variety in what people preferred. I will say that the 40k episode is in everybody's top 3.
I feel like the Pac-Man episode is probably going to be up there as well.
That is, and the Armored Core episode.
That sounds about right. I feel like Pac-Man is going to be a love it or hate episode for a lot of people.
Oh, I think it's going to be
Clearly,
great.
more people are landing on loving it, but I feel like because it's so different from what people might expect, and by the sounds of it, it's a lot creepier than even the trailer made it seem.
Yeah, so the creators had done some interviews. I don't know if you saw that, and they were talking about. They got asked about the Pac-Man one, and they said apparently they let studios pitch story ideas for the IPs, and they showed some of them to Bandai, who owned the Pac-Man IP, and they were like, "Huh, we're not sure. We want them to watch it and go, what the fuck is this Pac-Man?" Like Bandai themselves were the ones who were like, "No, we want this to like be as weird as possible. Like let them go
Okay.
weird as." And
Vando are almost like, our IP is strong, but it actually has nothing to it. Give it something.
I think it was just like, let them go wild. Like we don't care if this like this doesn't have to
Bandai are
be.
based. They want to let artists be artists?
And apparently
Question
they
mark.
went to one of the studio or one of their writers and said, "Look, they want you to be as weird as you can with it." And he was like, "Okay, I'll have a think about it." And this was like on a Friday, and he said, "I got an email Saturday with a full script, and I read it, and I was like, what the fuck?" But in a good way. So I'm like, I'm very excited to see what this Pac-Man is, because it sounds like they have gone so off the deep end with what Pac-Man could be.
Just, I'm gonna sound like a broken record. When you let creative people do creative stuff, good stuff always happens eventually.
Yeah. If you're allowing like the idea to allow like this is our IP. So it Pac-Man and these are the you letting a writer go, okay, what's Pac-Man? What are the core things of Pac-Man? Now, how can I turn that into something completely different? And then the IP owner being like, yeah, cool, go with it. Like, we just want to see what you come up with. Someone made like, I think it was in that same interview, the showrunner guy was like, someone made a point of because they were talking about weird things about like Pac-Man's kind of a weird game. He was
Yeah.
like, they eat the ghosts, but they don't eat the eyes. Because the eyes obviously always go back to the middle and respawn them. And he's like, just think about that. So now I'm thinking, what is this episode
What
like?
the
This
fuck
is
did they do with the eyes?
well, what are we gonna how are they gonna visualize that in this episode?
Yeah.
There's some I think we're in for a treat.
Mm. But so far, very impressed with Secret Level. The fact that we've
Yeah.
got another 12 episodes to get through is just exciting.
Yeah.
Cannot wait to watch more of it.
Something one more thing. The intro for this Secret Level, it's giving GameCube, and I love that.
Yes. Yeah, big,
The
big
little
time.
the little
Big time.
cube turning and stuff. I'm like, oh, this feels like the GameCube logo intro.